Good morning to both of you. I am really excited to definitely be speaking to Kevin. I think this is our first time face to face having this
Yeah.
conversation.
Although
Uh,
you've met one of my co-founders though, Kathleen, right?
Absolutely. Yes, Kathleen and I have been in chat, and of course Helen. We've known each other for quite some time now, and I'm really happy that you made time for this.
Oh, fantastic.
Um, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions. I mean, obviously, but this is good that we'll see how far we will go. But it will be a very interesting topic. And Helen, I don't know if did you know any of Kevin's work before, or have you seen any of his stuff before,
No,
or
I
this is your
did. I
first
know you
time?
sent, yeah, you sent me through all the links. I did go through it. This is the first time.
Perfect.
People often ask about, is marketing worth it for non-profits? So I jumped at the chance to find out more. So.
Yeah. And contribute too. We should make it a conversation for sure.
I hope so. I've got a few notes and so on and a
Nice.
few questions. So yeah, great.
Yeah, fantastic. So just for the sake of clarity, I think we will make this recording available as well. And for people who don't know what this space is and what we are doing, I'll just give a quick introduction. So if really this is your first time tuning in, welcome. My name is Rahwa Meskel, and I will be the moderator for this conversation today. So I think the reason why I do this and like the whole point of this conversation is that I think marketing as a concept needs to make sense for a lot of businesses, nonprofits, and institutions in emerging markets. And I think that's where sort of my passion lies. Because most of marketing's playbook tends to be a big corporation playbook, and if you, I mean that they're actually writing the scripts, right, for most for how marketing should be and how it should be also implemented. And I think if you are a small business in Uganda, if you're a small business in Tanzania, or if you are a small nonprofit in South Africa, sometimes it gets really difficult as to where you should start and how you can really do certain things. And my aim personally is to make marketing more practical. And that's sort of why I create content on LinkedIn and so on. And obviously, when I saw Kevin's work a few years back, I was really intrigued because the focus was amazing, and the work that you're doing with Might Ali is also fantastic. And of course, the same goes to the African Marketing Confederation. And this is, Kevin, I'm sure you will look into this, but Helen and her team have done a fantastic job connecting marketers across the continent and creating sort of the platform as well for all of us to come together. And I know the conference is happening in Ghana in August. Unfortunately, I'll be delivering my second baby then, so I won't be able to make it.
Oh, no way. Good reason not to go.
Yeah, there's one reason. Yeah. But I'm sure it will be fantastic, and maybe Kevin and his team might also participate one way or the other. But yeah, so really making marketing practical for businesses in emerging markets is really sort of my reason to go with this. So yeah, that's sort of the introduction, but I'll sort of guide both of you into certain conversations. Helen, maybe if you want to give some sort of opening stuff in the beginning. Otherwise, my idea was to actually bring you in the end, so you could give us the closing remarks. Is that okay for you?
That's still fine. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
prepared for that.
Perfect. All right. And Kevin, I think most of the questions will be directed to you. Then of course, we will have, if we have more people joining us as well, then we will have some Q&A from the audience as well. But yeah, so since we've said that we will have this conversation after the book launch, I'm really happy that we are at this stage, and I really enjoyed reading the book. And I think it's so practical to the level where I really like the structure. I really like how many examples you've given as well in the process. So yeah, I mean, maybe for people that don't know you, if you could sort of give us a little bit of your background, a little bit of your how you got from where you were to where you are today, that would be great.
Yeah. Thanks, Rawa. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the corporate playbook because I came out of the private sector. In fact, all four of the co-founders of Mighty Ally, we came out of the private sector. We joke we're corporate repenters. We used to build brands ranging from Apple to Formula One and fintech startups. And for me personally, like the first, sorry, it's getting some background noise.
No problem.
Was that okay? Yeah. So yeah, for me personally, the first 4 companies I worked for out of university helped scale towards acquisition, including one that I had co-founded, and so it was really a masterclass in building brands. But the orphan crisis was actually what personally opened my eyes to the need in the nonprofit space. So I have 2 daughters from Uganda, a daughter from China. It started really as a personal passion to just do something about the inequality that we saw personally, but then honestly, just even being in China, the orphanage of my first daughter, and just seeing rows and rows of babies that were not crying because they had learned not to cry, like that was a moment for me where I just realized, okay, this is not just a personal passion. I need to do something about this professionally. There's a quote from Mark Twain. He says, "The 2 most important days of your life are when you are born, and then when you find out why. The day you're born, and then the day you found out why you were born." And so for me, that was really, I think, the moment I realized not only my privilege but my responsibility to do something about this inequality. And so that led to a little bit of a journey to shadow a few nonprofits in East Africa. We were living in Uganda by then, and really just seeing what you said, Rawa. Like there's maybe some great work, but like corporate typically owns the idea of brand or the idea of marketing, and so we really started to see that a lot of these impactful products and programs just wouldn't reach their full potential without marketing and brand and all the things that we just knew to be true in the private sector, right? These are things that people prioritize, that investors invest in, but in the nonprofit world we almost shy away from. So that was really the impetus for Mighty Ally was, how do we take these best practices that are proven, right? Like business literature proves them, like decades of corporations proves this stuff. How do we translate it into like you said, a practical framework that small nonprofits could use as well?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think always when you come from the business world where all the principles are so applicable, but then it takes a lot. It takes a lot to
Mm.
make it and materialize it in a way where it could be applicable for nonprofits or for small businesses. And there's a lot of mindset shift and a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I really think that you guys are doing great in that regard. Amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, so so when you talked about launching a book, as always, it must be such a great one. I mean, even writing a LinkedIn post is not so easy, right? Even with all the AI tools and all that we have, right? It's not easy. But so
Right.
what were some sort of like the messy parts of writing the book? I mean, is there something that you thought, oh my, I wish somebody prepared me for this? And
Yeah.
what were also the good sides of it for you?
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. I certainly had to eat some humble pie when I started to write the book. I kind of thought, well, I have 80,000 words of blog posts and LinkedIn content, and I know what the book's going to be about. Like I even told myself, one writing retreat, I'll just go off in the woods for a few days, and I'll have a first draft. And so I went into it thinking that it was just another writing project. I've written for years. And I think again, I had a big dose of humility because I think the biggest thing I learned, but maybe the thing I didn't expect, or maybe even the low point, was realizing that a book is just a radically different medium. It's a multi-day journey that you're walking this reader through. It's not just one quick LinkedIn post. It's not one newsletter. It's not even one keynote speech. And unlike a speech or a workshop that you're in, you can't see the reader, right? You don't know how they're reacting. You can't answer questions. And so it really became daunting to just think that all these humans around the world would be giving me days of their life. And I had to try to navigate that without being in the room. So I think that was one piece of the humility. And then honestly, the vulnerability of a book being something that's just out there. It's out of your control. Like once you hit print, like you can't delete the post if there's a typo. Like this LinkedIn live event didn't work out, so we jumped to Google Meets. Like you can't do that with a book. It's out there in the world. And so a whole lot of just vulnerability arose that I didn't expect around like, wow, I'm out of control now. So I think that was the biggest lesson. And then maybe the biggest, like you asked about like the gain or something I didn't expect. I would tell so many leaders this, like whether you intend to publish a book or not, like just the act of writing, it's remarkable how much that helps you clarify your thinking and clarify your model and find gaps. And they say that, right? They say that you don't go off and think and figure it out and then write. You actually write in order to think. And we certainly found that in our own organization. We've been around for 8 years. We kind of thought, oh yeah, we have our framework, we have all these blog posts, we have our tools, let's go turn it into a book. But one of the greatest gifts of the whole book writing process was how much we learned. And we had these beta readers around the world. Like 270 people signed up to read these early drafts, and they were poking holes. And I don't get this, and this doesn't make sense. I don't believe that. And through that process, we had to strengthen our thinking and strengthen our model. So yeah, it's such a gift that if anyone's listening to this and has any inclination to write, I would say just go do it, even if you don't publish, because you will get better in the process.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Absolutely. Yeah, writing is such it clears the mind, and it's such it's a way of expression as well, and that's sort of I've seen it personally as well. Writing for few, not just for clients, but also for myself on LinkedIn, and I really relate to that point. And thank you for sharing. Um, yeah, and there was sort of like, so many lines that I really liked. I like your writing style because it's not so bulky and it actually you get to the point as well. And I think that's sort of a style, but you do very well. And then there was this line that I think I read this on your LinkedIn before even the book, but it's also part of the book that it said that to be a noun, you really have to do the verb. And I think in our that gets a bit diluted because we think that most of our work is actually showing or like you don't necessarily do but you show. We're in the business of showing, but there needs to be an activity and action and a capability that sort of like drives what we are showing. But I also really like that because you went into the depth of turning around the whole approach of, okay, you're not promoting, you're not marketing, you're actually getting funding, and that's the essence of the entire organization, right? I found that really, really interesting from the book because you're not preaching about marketing, you're not preaching about visibility, although that's somehow the core of the book and the essence of the book. So how did you get into that thought process? Was this something that you came up one day and you said, okay, that's it, we need to write about funding, or was it a process for you and also for the agency as well?
Yeah, great question. So it's interesting. Again, coming from the corporate world, we had this belief that all we need to do is contextualize these brand tools and the discipline of brand, and we can convince people that brand matters in the nonprofit world. And so for years, that was our lead message: is you need to focus on your brand. Brand first, funding second. And what we found over the years and through the book writing process is a lot of people are actually not just maybe lukewarm or maybe nonchalant about brand, but a lot of people are opposed to the idea of brand. If you're a social sector purist, if you're maybe an academic, if you're like a global health researcher, you might actually feel that brand is a corporate thing that makes you compete with peers, that is all about design, and that isn't for us in the nonprofit world. So we slowly started to shift this idea of, instead of forcing brand down people's throat, let's talk about being fundable and findable. And that was really where that term arose, and that of course ended up being the title of the book. But I think that was a little bit of our Trojan horse of the hook. Make people care about being fundable and findable, and then, oh yeah, by the way, here's the secret: that is your brand. And this has to precede fundraising, right? So that was a very deliberate process. We're not trying to shy away from the idea of brand in the book or in our work, but we're not trying to convince people that they need a brand before they really understand all the elements. Yeah, and I think that's maybe what's broken in our sector is we're almost trained to go out and be fundraisers first. It's like fundraising. Go chase donors, go write grant applications, prospect lists, and we don't stop and think about all the necessary foundation that's needed. And so that's why I say in the book, look, brand and fundraising are both critical. They're inseparable. It's not about the order of importance. It's about the order of operations. Brand is the soil, fundraising is the water and the seeds. Brand is the engine, fundraising is the fuel. Like, brand is that foundation of your house, fundraising is the roof. And so they're interconnected, but I think we've had it backwards in our sector. We think, okay, we need to go raise a lot of money and fundraise, and then we can worry about our brand, but it's actually the other way around.
No, I really like that. It's absolutely beautiful, and I think that's also it also shows that you really understood the pain points and also the triggering points of your clientele or even the entire non-profit organization. And with so much funding also shifting globally, I mean, I also think that this is, I mean, everybody, you don't even have to be in communication to roll your eyes and look at this book, or even marketing and branding to be able to understand it. And I really like that approach. Yeah. And then you move on into positioning and marketing communication. That's sort of like the other bread and butter of this book.
Yeah.
And and what I constantly hear as well from a lot of nonprofits is that because we are doing good, because we are not like operating to make profits, everybody should care. And I think
Mm.
this mindset, and I was really happy to also discover it in your book because I've also experienced it, is that just doing good doesn't, I mean, we are living in a very scarce, attention is scarce, resources are scarce. And so how do you, just because you're doing good doesn't mean that the whole world will care. And I really appreciated that you sort of broke down that mindset shift as well. So maybe if you can tell us a bit more about that, and then any other things that leaders in nonprofit organizations should be paying attention when they're designing their positioning and communication.
Yeah, so a big part of being findable is positioning, and a big part of positioning is figuring out who are you trying to attract with your brand or your marketing or communications.
Yeah.
You could call them priority audiences, targets, whatever you call them. It's figuring out who are you trying to reach, because a good brand is really an intersection of you having the right message, and you own part of your brand, but you don't own it all, because you're putting a message out into the world. And I always say that message has to intersect with an audience somewhere, and that intersection is really the nuance of building a great brand. You might have the right message, but you're reaching the wrong audience, or you might have the right audience, but you have the wrong message. And so it's a dance to try to figure out that right message with the right audience. And especially with donors, right? I think we'll do these workshops. Like we have a training program, we'll do these workshops, and we'll say, well, who are you trying to reach with your brand? And people will say donors. And I'll say, well, there's at least 5 big categories of donors. There are government donors, corporate donors, high net worth donors, family foundations, small gifts donors. There's at least 5, and probably much more than that. So you have to get real specific within positioning around who you're targeting within your brand. And so I think that's a big part of positioning, is just who the heck is this for, right? And so we have some tools in the book, and we use with our clients around not only naming your audiences, but empathy map is a tool that we love, because it allows you to get in the heads of your audiences. So it's one thing to name them and want to reach them. It's another thing to know what makes them tick, what makes them click. And that's another art and nuance of good communications, is not just saying what you want to say, but saying it in a way that it really hits on their pain points and what they're trying to accomplish as a donor. And sometimes we don't think of donors as having pain points, but they do, right? They're looking for good investments. They're looking for trustworthy organizations. They're looking for, they probably have a board telling them some of their mandates. And so there's a whole process you have to go through to really figure out, where you're positioned in the world, looking at other organizations that are out there, and, kind of figuring out where you fit, right? Where you fit and who you're targeting. That's, I think, the probably 2 biggest pieces of positioning strategy.
Amazing. Yeah. And everybody wants to look good as well, right? And so when you're solving a problem for your donors, also give them something, right? And that's it's about like a different, looking at it differently.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and and on the last section of the book, you also talk about the donor acquisition and retention, and that would be in a very commercial setup. That would sound like the sales department, right? Okay, so now you've done all your homework, you've become findable, and you've done your background work as well. So how do you actually now retain it? How do you sell it, right? Which is great, and because sometimes as marketers, I think we tend to think of more like the above the line kind of communication or that strategy level, but then we fell a bit short on that selling and closing process. But I really like that you've somehow integrated the donor acquisition and also retention side of things. So I mean, in your opinion, or in your journey, what do you think makes a nonprofit easy to fund, and what are some of the signals and the behaviors that that funders also look for, even sometimes unconsciously, for them to be able to say like, oh, I trust this organization. I will continue to fund them, and I will keep them in my retainer as well. So what leads to that?
Yeah. So if you ask about what are donors looking for, it's funny because my number one answer is always, a little bit of a surprise. It's not super sexy. It's not this big innovative answer, but the number one complaint we hear from our donor friends is that they just don't understand what you do. And so this idea of clarity really being the first thing donors are looking for. They need to understand what you do. And that feels surprising because I think a lot of leaders, whether it's nonprofit, social enterprise, or even small business, I think they know what they do, right? Of course, I know what we do. It's obvious to the outside world, but that's the thing is that it might be obvious to you, but it's not obvious to donors. We hear funders that tell us, all right, we'll get a grant application and read it, and we still don't know what they do. We'll go to their website to try to do the work, and we still can't figure it out. Like, we have this story in the book about sitting across from the lunch table at a funder's annual conference, and this funder was giving these two entrepreneurs a chance to pitch her, and they just kept saying like systems change and scale and holistic, and she would say, but tell me what you do, and they would say, well, it's community led and it's innovative, and finally she gave up and she literally walked away, but gave them her card, and she said, why don't you check out our foundation's website, and if you think what you do matches with what we fund, then you can get in touch. And I remember sitting there just mortified.
Painful.
Yeah, painful. They had a donor in front of them, but they were truly just trying to sound so smart and sound so clever that they forgot to be clear. So I think that's the first thing is be clear. And then the second thing we hear from donors is they just don't understand how you're different from everybody else. Maybe everyone else they already fund. And so how you're unique, if you can combine what you do with how you're unique, it's like that's half the battle. I mean, really, you could read a whole book on brand, you could take courses, but if you could just get clear on what you do and how you're different in the world, that those two things go a really long way. And then to answer your question, Raul, I think maybe the third thing that donors we see that they're looking for is good leadership. A lot of times with these early stage and growth stage organizations, the leaders, they are kind of what the donors are investing in as well. And so really showcasing that strategic plan, the team, like, hey, we've got the skills to pull this off. We don't just have a theory. We don't just have good messaging. We actually have the actions and the traction to pull it off. And that's one reason that strategic planning is part of our brand framework is because at this stage, a lot of donors just really need to see, all right, is this just some grand vision, or do you actually have the team and the leaders and the plan to pull it off? So I think those are the three big things that any listener should take away is clarity, showing why you're unique, and then showing that you are pulling it off. You do have the traction and the action.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that also brings me to the last point in terms of like, sometimes you also don't have it all lined up. You don't necessarily have it all clear. But I think maybe even to tie it to clarity is also when you are clear, you also know where you are strong and where you are falling, right? And so the imperfection is actually something to rest in. The imperfection doesn't make us necessarily bad. It actually makes us good. It actually makes us more fundable because we know our weaknesses and our strengths as well. And there was a specific line in your conclusion was also a bit around, and I really liked that imperfect brands also make the perfect sense. So maybe you can actually say a few things about that as well, because I really like how you summarized it in that on that chapter.
Yeah. So after a whole book of saying, here's a roadmap, here's how to do this, I conclude by saying that really none of us have it figured out, and that's not to let us all off the hook, not to say we can be lazy or flippant about it, but the truth is we don't have it figured out. Like as a sector, poverty and injustice is not solved. Like these sustainable development goals are off track. Like we as a sector have not figured this out yet. And so the good news is that's kind of the idea behind brand and communications and marketing and fundraising being almost more like a science. It means go out and experiment. You're not supposed to have it figured out. So, there's a quote in the book from Jacqueline Novogratz. She's the founder of Acumen, a big impact investor. And it's a beautiful quote. She says, just start and let the work teach you. And I think many times we as entrepreneurs get caught up in trying to make it perfect and build this great product and have this great pitch deck before we launch it. she says, and I say in the conclusion, get out there. You'll learn more from kind of that experimentation than you will from anything else. So I think that's that's one takeaway from that conclusion. And then the other takeaway is, even if you nail the right brand and right communications, it's all living and breathing. It's supposed to change. Like, you as an organization will grow and change. Your donors will grow and change. The landscape will change. I mean, who would have expected USA to pull $40 billion out of the ecosystem in January, right? I think that was a surprise. Like, who would have expected COVID, right? It's always your brand and your messaging is always going to be living and breathing. So yeah, don't, as much as there are tools and best practices, also don't put the pressure on yourself to get it perfect. Get it out there. You'll learn so much. Even if you've never done brand, if you've never done communications like this, just get out there and experiment. Learn from the data, learn from your donors, and keep tweaking. We've certainly done that at Mighty Ally. Like, we even launched 8 years ago with, like, we had this really bad code name. It was like Project X. We didn't even have a name yet. And we launched and we got our first client, and we just started learning. And then over the years, we just tweaked and made it better.
No, absolutely. Yes, yes. That's the beauty of everybody that actually does something. Is that you have to be able to reinvent yourself and to say, okay, this didn't work. Okay, I get up and I do it again. Otherwise, you just you just leave it in decks and strategy ideas, and then you'll never move. And that's such a great takeaway. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit about also like being in harmony with what you say, what you think and do. I also really like that. I mean, it sounds a bit almost meditative,
Yeah.
and quite uh, quite on a different level, to be in sync and to be in sync with who you are behaviorally as well.
Yeah.
But maybe you can tell us a bit more about that as well. Yeah, and how did
Yeah.
that come into your book?
Yeah, so maybe it's the journalism background from years ago, but I quote a lot of great leaders in the book. It's not just famous leaders. One thing I love about the book is that all these beta readers that helped me edit the book, they were constantly contributing ideas, and so I ended up weaving a lot of their quotes into the book. And so you'll see people you recognize, but then a lot of just social entrepreneurs from around the world that are in the book. But this quote you asked about comes from a leader we all know, Gandhi. So Gandhi had said that true harmony is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are kind of integrated, right? Or are in harmony. That's when you find true happiness. So Gandhi was talking about happiness of an individual, and he was talking about harmony of an individual. But I kind of use this idea to say that what you think, that's your theory of change and your positioning strategy. So that's what you're thinking. And then what you say is your marketing communications, and then what you do is that strategic plan. So those are the four pillars of the book: your theory of change and positioning. That's what you're thinking, and then what you say is your marketing. But you have to back it up with what you do, and that's where you find true brand harmony. And so it's just kind of a cool way to summarize. It's like, if you don't want to think of it as brand or fundable and findable, just think of it as that. It's what you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing all coming together, and that's when we find a harmonious brand.
I love that. Absolutely great. Yeah. Well, what a great way to close the book. Great, great ending. Yeah, yeah. That's really nice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I mean, I've had I had to narrow down my questions to those, but there's
Yeah.
so much to talk about and to say. But I really, really enjoyed your book, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend to anybody. I mean, you don't even have to be in a nonprofit organization, to be honest, because most of the principles are actually quite applicable to a personal brand, particularly a small and medium enterprise. This actually works well for you, because I find this to be much more applicable than any of the big corporations. I mean, we are not Coca-Cola. We don't have that kind of
Right.
arms and agencies.
Right.
You are not Heineken. You're not like Formula One. But of course,
Right.
most of what we know about marketing comes from this organizations. And yeah, I mean, this book is quite and it breaks down a lot of concepts into actionable bites. So go ahead and get a copy of the book. And obviously, of course, you will also find it on LinkedIn and all on Amazon, everywhere, right? Everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, you can go to fundablefindable.org. You'll see it on the website. But at fundablefindable.org, you'll see there's an Amazon link, there's a few digital versions. And then one thing we're really proud of is we have this version that's called Read Online. And we wanted to make the book as accessible as possible for any reader anywhere. Like even if you lived in a country where you can't get Amazon shipments, if you don't have an e-reader like a Kindle, you can log on and read it actually online on your phone, on your web browser, any device, anywhere it's available. So that was one of our ways of kind of democratizing it and making sure that anyone could access it. And yeah, it's been cool. That read online version is actually outperforming the ebook, which is cool. Like more people are buying that than the Kindle ebook, which is awesome to see that people want that just easy access.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. That's great. That's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. It makes it more accessible.
Totally.
Thank you, Kevin. And with that, maybe then I'll come to Helen. Thank you so much, Helen, again for joining us. But I mean, we've had this conversation in many different ways. I mean, from AMC's point of view and bringing more marketers together and creating a platform for Africa. Um, so I think it was something that really always stick with me from one of the things that you said is that marketing should never be an add-on. It should be a strategic leveler for organizations, whether you are a non-profit or for-profit organization. And yeah, I thought that maybe you could link our whole topic with that and then conclude this discussion with that point.
Thank you, Kevin. I found that very interesting. I haven't read the book, and my question, and you answered it right at the very end, is it available on Kindle? So I'm thrilled, and straight after this, I will download it. So thank you so much. I think from my point of view, talking about nonprofits, I think fortunately the number of people who think that marketing for nonprofits is not a critical issue. I think that number is going down. I think people are realizing. But I think, and you mentioned it a lot, Kevin, in terms of telling the story. And I think that's where marketing is now heading. It's not about just communicating. It's about actually telling a story to your audience. And I'm a great one. I'm a bit of a digital dinosaur. So I always tend to think, okay, marketing has changed in the way we actually deliver our messages and our stories. But if we go back to basics, it's still the same marketing theory that we learned when I was at university and so on. And you mentioned it, Kevin, in terms of positioning. Positioning and getting into the heads of the donors or the funders is really psychographic segmentation, isn't it? And we can use data analytics now to really get into the heads of our consumers or our customers or our prospective donors. So I think data analytics is so important, and I know at our conferences, I'm sure, Raul, you mentioned, everybody talks about data, data, data. It's the way to go. And I think that's because we need to understand our customer, the potential funders, the consumer, whatever we like to call it, our audience. They have stories too. And that's what marketing is all about. It's exchanging our stories. So we've got something that you'd be interested in because of our journey, and you've got something that we're interested in because of your journey. So I think getting into the head of the audience is probably the biggest takeout that I've got from this morning. And I think that makes so much sense. And also talking, in Africa we've got over 2,000 languages. I think understanding the culture of the person that we're talking to, understanding their language, and talking to them in a language that they understand and that is meaningful for them. We're talking now about mindfulness in the workplace, getting into their heads, understanding that it shouldn't be that rat race that it was perhaps in the 70s and 80s where you just sold boxes. So I think your 3 points, Kevin, clarity, uniqueness, and leadership, are absolutely crucial to any organization, whether it be for-profit or non-profit. So I found this absolutely scintillating, and I definitely want to read this book, and I'm sure the audience will as well. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your insights. And I did hopefully garner quite a lot of interest from the member associations, of the African Marketing Confederation. And I'd really like a copy of this recording because I think some of them fell off and didn't manage to get back in, that I can send out to them, via the AMC website rather than just via LinkedIn, so I can target them directly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, we'll definitely make the recording available and share that with all of you, so we can share and more people could have access to it as well. But that's really, really, thank you so much for closing out in such a manner. I would like to thank both of you for your time and for giving us all of this insight. So I see that we have a few people who have joined us as well. So I would love for them, if they have any questions, I'd like to open it up to our audience for them to ask questions. So please show me your hands, guys, and thank you again also for making it all the way to into this Teams this Google Meets call. So if you show me your hands, I'll give the opportunity for you to speak and ask questions. Okay, good. So yes, William Salomon, I see. Please go ahead and speak. Yeah, I think you're on mute, but you can unmute and ask the question. Go ahead.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. So my question is for Kevin. In the age of AI, where anyone can craft, the perfect message and the perfect pitch, how would the investors or the donors prepare, a message that's got accepted? That's my question.
Thanks, Harmonia. Hey, so do you mean more like for you as a leader, for you as a social sector leader, how do you craft the perfect message because there's so much AI noise? Is that the gist?
Yeah. So when we approach for the donors,
Yeah.
in this, anyone can craft the perfect message. I can log in, I can load all your book information in the AI and craft the perfect message based on your book. So,
Yeah.
uh, how can we differentiate and, uh, you know,
Got it.
give, yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is interesting. I think we can with AI craft a lot of great messaging, but I don't think yet AI can replace some of the insights that we have as leaders about our community and the needs that we're seeing firsthand. Right? I mean, no AI can be out on the ground with our community and no AI can really be listening to the donors and kind of getting that intelligence around the problem we're solving. And so I think a good theory of change is still really hard to craft with AI. Like, I think we're years away from the point where like ChatGPT could craft a full theory of change for us, right? Because again, we're just going to know things about our community and our work and our vision. Like we should have those instincts and those insights in us that nobody can replace. I think similarly, AI can craft a good message, but are you targeting the right audiences, like I talked about with positioning? Are you using the right channels? For instance, LinkedIn, where I write every day, is it's now flooded with AI. You can see the messages from a mile away. It is well crafted messaging, but they get 5 likes because maybe they're not targeting the right audiences, or maybe they're not on the right platform. And so I still think when it comes to building a brand, what AI is good at now is that final extension of the brand, which is more like the messaging that's what we would say is the difference between like brand and branding. I think AI is getting good with the branding side, where it's like the actual wording and taking content and helping you put it into an email newsletter, or even helping you now with visuals or photography, right? But I don't think AI can yet replace us as thinkers and as experts in our field and those with the proximity and the knowledge of our customers and our communities, right? There's no way yet for AI to replace that. So I would say that means we even need to lean harder on that, right? So yes, a lot of people can kind of replicate some of the content I write on LinkedIn, but are they in the same meetings that morning that I am to develop the reason that I even wrote about that in the first place? Are they seeing the pain point from our clients that then I'm taking and writing about? I think that's the stuff that nobody can replace. And so lean on that, lean on your expertise, your insights, your knowledge, the firsthand experiences. I think that's where you should lean to make sure you stay unique.
All right, thanks so much.
Yeah. It's harder to do though, right? It's getting harder. So that's the truth. As much as I say all that, I say that, yeah, it is harder. Like I started writing on LinkedIn just 2.5 years ago. And, every post would have, whatever, lots of impressions. And, it was like, 5,000 new followers every month because it was just, not as many people writing content. And now there is a flood of AI content. And even folks like me that only use AI for the final polishing, it's even getting harder for folks like me that have a big following. So I think we all just have to work harder and again find those insights that nobody else has. We all have such unique experiences day to day, and your next nonprofit leader or the next person trying to cheat by using AI will just not have the same experiences.
Perfect. Thanks so much for taking all the time.
Yeah, thanks for that great question. I mean, yeah, this AI conversation is such a big topic, right? I mean, it's affecting a lot of industries, but I think that we can only lean on what we can control. And I think context is where the main differentiating factor is, and I hope you agree with that point. So yeah, I mean, it's such a small group of people. This is great, guys. We rarely get to very high level people that are hard to get in such a context. So take advantage of this. Ask all your questions. If there's anything else, please raise your hands and I will. I guess I don't see anybody with a question. Is there any way we can communicate with you after reading the book? Okay, Alkidani, yes, I see the question. Yeah, so I think both Kevin and Helen are on LinkedIn, so feel free to message them or send them a connection request after this. Yeah, Kevin is quite active also on LinkedIn. He posts almost every day and really full of insights, so I would highly recommend that. But I think he's definitely reachable via LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, totally. And I actually put my email address in the book in the conclusion, so I know that might have been silly, but I put it at the end and I said, contact me, right? I mean, we're a community. We're all in this together. We're a nonprofit hybrid ourselves. Like, we're all on the same team. I actually had the first reader that finished the book and took me up on that offer at the conclusion. I said, email me, let me know how you're getting along. It was amazing. She just emailed this week and she had already used that theory of change template. She had already updated her website with the tools, and she just said, thank you for writing this book. Like, I got laid off because of USAID, and I was able to take this book and implement changes to my small nonprofit. And we were just celebrating here. It's like, that's incredible. So that's why I put it in the book. But yeah, you'll see it talking about it. It's kevin@mightyally.org. Yeah, my co-founders tell me I'm crazy, but I still try to reply to every single comment on LinkedIn, and I still try to reply to every single email. So hit me up.
Perfect. There you go. That was the catch, and now we have you on recording.
Yeah, totally. I know. Even if it's just a quick like, I try to hit. Again, it's even social media, right? It's supposed to be social. That's the whole point. And yeah, people that are just cranking out content. Yeah, ghost and host, right? Yeah, they say that's the worst, right? Nobody wants to interact with a bot. So yeah, let's make it human.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, guys. Well, thank you so much. And I think that brings us to the end of our conversation as well. I really appreciate both of your time, and I think there was a lot of insight and learning. For our audience, please go ahead and get this book and learn firsthand as well. If there's any other remark that you want to say before we leave, I'll leave the floor to both of you. Kevin? That's about it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been very interesting, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of interest as well once we share the recordings. So. And as you can see, I wasn't prepared for visual; I was more prepared for audio. So,
looks like a beautiful day out there. So it's
wonderful. Thank you. Right, thanks, guys. I really appreciate your efforts in putting this together on. And hopefully we'll chat further later on.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.